Hi everyone, I'm JD. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I'm continuing on with the series sharing about the books that helped me through my mental health journey with depression and anxiety back in 2015 and 16. I'll link below part 1 and part 2 if you missed those and want to check out the other books that helped me so far that I've shared. So this one is called Boundaries, and this one really helped me to understand an unhealthy behavior pattern that I had in my life that I needed to get rid of. But before I could get rid of it, I had to know I had the unhealthy behavior pattern, and this book let me know. So it was very insightful, very helpful. Um, like I said in a previous video, I need to know the why and the root causes and that kind of stuff. Some people like to work like in therapy in the here and now, and that's how they overcome things. For me, I need to go back and I need to work out the theory behind what I'm going through, and then I can move on from it. So this one really gave me that kind of head knowledge about what was going on in my life. And what was going on in my life was that I had no boundaries. And I never knew this until this book. So this is why I say it's like, I'm just so thankful for books. They really do change lives and behaviors and thoughts. So yeah, it taught me that I had a problem saying no, and that I needed to learn how to say yes. Because before this, I thought it was great that I kept saying yes to everything. And, it made me a good person if I said yes. And I didn't want to be selfish and say no. In fact, it got to a point, this is why the depression and anxiety got, so rampant, was because I just kept saying yes to people. But the more I said yes, the more I was denying my own well-being and my own needs and wants. But I didn't know I even had needs and wants. I just ignored them and suppressed them. And I didn't know that it was okay to have needs and wants. And I didn't know that it was okay to meet my own needs and wants. Um, I didn't even know that it was possible to say no. Like, that's how intense and warped my thinking was, that I didn't even have that perspective in my brain. There was no room for no. So when someone asked me, can you do this? Like, no wasn't even an option. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I can say no, but I have to say yes. It was no, no, no. No wasn't even on my radar. um, and then what happened though, the more I kept saying yes, the more angry I became. And like, I'm not an angry person. I rarely feel anger. And a lot of that is actually, well, some of it's probably due to unhealthy reasons, because I was a big suppressor of emotions. I thought emotions were bad, especially emotions like anger. And so I would, anytime I felt anger, I would just push it aside and be like, no, everything's okay. But at this time, when I kept saying yes to things when I really meant no, but I didn't know that I meant no, anger was the thing in me that was telling me, you need to say no. But I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, why is this anger here? I can't stand it. And it was horrible. It was so horrible. The anger got so intense that I was digging my nails into my skin, which I learned is a form of self-harm. And I was doing that to give myself relief. I was doing that to try to hold myself together because I felt like so out of control. I felt just so angry and consumed by it that I felt like I was going to explode, and it was just the worst. It was unbearable. It felt terrible. And all the time I was telling myself, you're such a bad person. You can't, why are you feeling angry? You should not feel angry. You're such a bad person for feeling angry. And how dare you feel bad for saying yes? And you're a bad friend. You're such a horrible, like, just, can you imagine someone saying that to you? Can you imagine someone telling you you're the horrible person? You're not allowed to feel anger. You have to say yes every single time. You horrible person if you say no. Like, no one would ever do that. And that's one thing that I had to learn as well. I'm in a relationship with myself. Everyone is in a relationship with themselves, which is like a kind of airy fairy concept, but I've literally had to hold on to this concept because we speak to ourselves in our thought life and maybe even out loud. And it's just the same as the way we would speak to someone else. So you would never speak that way to someone else. So why do we say it to ourselves? It's just exactly the same. We are in a relationship with others. We speak well of them. We treat them well. We are in relationship with ourselves. We can do things to ourselves that either help us or harm us. We can say things to ourselves that either help us or harm us. So why not treat ourselves the way we treat others, if that makes any sense? Anyway, so I was just tearing myself to shreds. You're the worst person. You're so and then finally, I was just like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't self-destruct like this. I don't want to feel like this ever again. And that's why I put in the hard yards and the hard work to finally put in my boundaries and to learn to say yes. And it took time. It took months, because even though I knew I could say, this book gave me permission to say yes, and it showed me I needed to say yes for my own sanity, for my own well-being. I knew it. My head knew it, but I just did not have the strength in real life to do it. So my head would be like, okay, next time someone asks me to do something, and I feel the sense in my body telling me I don't want to do it and I need to look after myself, otherwise I'll get angry. I can say no. And I would tell myself that. But in the moment, I didn't have that strength yet to do that. I fell back on my natural pattern, my default mode, and would say yes. But the anger would rise up again, because anger, what I learned is a friend. It tells you when your boundary has been crossed. It tells you when your need hasn't been met. And you got to listen to it. If you don't listen to it, it doesn't go away, which is what I thought. I thought, I won't listen to you, anger will go away. No, it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and it's for your own good. This is what I learned. Oh my gosh, I thought anger was the worst thing of all, but anger is such a good emotion to alert you to know when you need to look after yourself, to know when your boundary has been crossed, and then it's about just dealing with it well. So anyway, so every time I felt that anger, I've learnt, oh man, okay, I just did the wrong thing. I said yes when I should have said no. And then slowly, just by listening to my body like that, listening to my emotions, that finally led me to getting more strength in my own self and trusting myself, if that makes sense, trusting my emotions. And finally, slowly by slowly, little by little, I learnt how to say no. And sometimes I'd fall back, like for whatever reason, I'd go, oh, yes, even though inside I'm thinking, oh, no, no, no. And so I've had to learn, okay, it's okay, it's a little hiccup. We don't need to destroy yourself over this. We can next time, it's okay. And not that I've said no to everything or anything, but just that when I heard that voice in me or that anger rise up, that's what I knew to say no. And it was really hard as well, because I just felt like such a bad person for saying no. I felt like that person's going to hate me now. That person won't be my friend anymore. That person will think I'm a selfish person. They're going to think I'm so unchristian, all that kind of stuff. And so that's what I was fighting against, all these things in my head telling me why I had to say yes. And yet I just had to listen to my own body that was just telling me, you need to look after yourself. You've got to self-destruct if you keep on this track of saying yes, 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 yes. Okay, so another thing that I got out of it was this idea that, mind blank, hang on. Oh my gosh, what was I going to say? Boundaries, listening to your emotions. Oh my gosh. You know when you just have it and then it's just gone? Hang on, I need to think. Oh my gosh, I had it. It was going to be something. Oh, that was it. Sorry, guys. I was like, it's got to come back eventually. Yeah, this idea as well, that one of the reasons why I kept saying yes as well was due to pride. You know, I was that person who was like, I'm going to be that person who everyone asks to do something and I'll meet their need, and yay me, look how good I will look, yay. And that whole idea that, oh yes, people ask me, they rely on me, how good am I, because they rely on me. And no, we got to get rid of that pride. And second of all, the idea that I had it in my head that everything depended on me. If someone asked me, I assumed that was because no one else could do it, only I could do it. The world was on my shoulders, and if I said no, then their world's going to fall apart, and I'm to blame. And that's why they're going to hate me, and that's why they're going to not be my friend anymore. When I didn't realize, hang on a minute, there were probably like 20 other people they could ask, maybe more, I don't know. And that the world didn't rely on me. If I said no, their world isn't going to fall apart. They can just ask someone else, or maybe even do it themselves. So that was a huge lesson. It took saying no for me to learn it though, because at the start I was just like, it wasn't even in my head, that I didn't have that perspective that it wasn't up to me. I thought everything was up to me, and that was the pressure and the tension I felt, and it was just too much. And eventually, yeah, I learned after saying no a few times that, oh, that person still likes me. And it was no big deal for that person. They're just like, oh, okay, I'll just ask someone else. I'm like, ah, really? And here I am stewing over it going, oh my gosh, my whole identity and worth hinges on my decision to say yes or no. And here I am like just turning myself into absolute anxious knots. And the anxiety just, it was terrible. And to them, it's just like, oh yeah, no big deal. All right, cool, moving on. And so eventually, yeah, I learned how to say no. And again, it's just learning about the seasons. Like, of course, sometimes it might be more appropriate to say yes. Maybe it's more appropriate to say no. And I'm not saying like in every single case you say no when you don't want to do something. Of course, there are times where we have to do things we don't want to do. But it's more about listening to that voice, your inner voice, and learning to listen to that anger. The anger will tell you yes or no. And it's got nothing to do with being selfish or unselfish or that desire to help or being a good friend or bad friend. It's literally just listening to your own body and hearing what it's saying and telling you what you need. Because sometimes, yeah, our heads don't know what we need or want, but our body does. And like that's amazing, isn't it? And the way our body tells us what we need is through our emotions. Because our thoughts, like we can just go on or off on our own thoughts and they're all inaccurate and wrong. And but our body has this amazing way of telling us, of communicating to us through emotions. And I did not know this before this whole journey. So this is another big lesson I learned through the mental health journey, is that it gave me my emotions back. It showed me the value of emotions and listening to them. And yeah, it's been really good to listen to them. For example, when I'm anxious now, instead of just letting it roll on, and I live in that anxious place for hours and hours, previously maybe days, weeks, whatever, now I can pick it up in my body and go, hang on a second. All right, my heart is racing. I'm feeling hot in the chest. I'm anxious. And then I can go, oh, okay, let's deal with this now. Now that I'm aware that I'm anxious, why am I anxious? What's going on? Is it helpful to have these thoughts running through my head? No. Okay, let's stop that. Okay, maybe I need to distract myself and use those other tools I shared about in the previous video about diffusion, expansion, and distraction. Maybe it's as simple as distract myself, read a good book, watch a movie, and then I'm out of my head, I'm out of my anxious thoughts, and or maybe talk to someone, or go for a walk, or listen to some music, or whatever it is. But the key is here, there, that the emotion, my body is telling me, hang on a minute, this is how you're feeling. Okay, now what can we do about it? Rather than just getting lost in your own thoughts and just swimming in them and just being stuck in them. So yeah, I don't know. Hope that was helpful. Just a little summary, I suppose, of what I got from this book about learning to say no, learning that emotions are good for us, that we can listen to them, that they're telling us how to look after ourselves. And yeah, that was a big ramble. I don't know, whenever I do these videos, they're just a big ramble, and I hope that whatever comes out of my mouth is helpful. So let me know if it is, if it actually is helpful. And if you need any more explanation or elaboration, just let me know and I can answer any of your questions or go into more detail about certain things if I didn't explain myself very clearly. But I hope that is helpful. That's the main thing. That's why I'm doing this, is in case it helps someone. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll be back to share the next books and videos. Bye!